Hello there, Sari here. Welcome to Lesson 8. We are going to be talking about the thumb. If you haven't visited my Facebook page, it's Life and Destiny Palmistry. We're going to talk about the thumb, its setting, the angles, size, shape and tips. This is quite a big lesson, this one, so I hope you're ready. The thumb can reveal the amount of determination, self-control, decisiveness, willpower and energy. The willpower covers the tip of the thumb, and the determination and logic covers the bottom part of the thumb. The very base of the thumb, the ball of the thumb, is the capacity of love and energy. So the thumb virtually has its own significance in a reading. You can glance at a person's hand and quickly get a general idea of their energy, drive and basic temperament. It's a crucial part of character awareness, particularly in situations where one is meeting someone for the first time. For example, an employer seeking a particular type of worker. The thumb is also an excellent subject in which to attain clues confirming other characteristics on the hands. So the amount of willpower, energy and self-control are shown by the length of the tip of the thumb. And thoughtfulness, organising skills are shown by the length of the logic. So basically, if the tip of the thumb is very short, it shows a shortage of willpower. If the thumb is short in the first section, it shows a lack of organising skills. As with most features, finding a balance in proportion to itself and how it appears to look in the hand is ideal, so nothing too crude and nothing too small. In general, a small thumb belongs to a daydreamer, a very low set thumb belongs to the hands of a worker, and an extended, meaning a long thumb, indicates strength of character and intelligence. The thumb is an excellent aspect in which to attain clues confirming other characteristics found on. We're going to talk about the thumb setting now, on where it sits on the palm. So that might be the first thing that stands out when looking at the thumb, is where it's set high or low in the palm. A low set thumb shows a manually dexterous, practical person, and a high set thumb belongs to someone who's more of an intellectual type. Of course, if it's neither high nor low, it shows a balance of the physical and mental. And here's a picture of an average setting. You can see that where the corner of the thumb is, it's about the middle. So an average setting finger indicates a good amount of generosity, ego, intellect and wariness. These people are practical and giving. They're neither a miser nor a pushover usually. A high set thumb is when the inside of the thumb is greater than halfway up the palm. It's fairly rare to have a high set thumb. But it does show some shortage of character and sometimes even intellect, although they can be quite shrewd, so not very trustworthy. They're less adaptable than those with a medium or low set thumb. And the thumb in this position usually has a narrow angle as well, so it depicts a very cautious and secretive nature. They're typically very selfish, so for them to be in a generous mood, they must have a valid reason or a worthy cause. And the opposite now is a low set thumb. It's when the inside of the thumb is below halfway on the hand, closer to the wrist. The low set thumb portrays a practical and open-minded person with a down-to-earth look on life. So it's easy to remember. Open hand, open-minded. Closed thumb, closed-minded. They may not always be very imaginative, but they are certainly self-confident, determined and independent. They are very adaptable, hence the open-mindedness. So the low set thumb is usually long, depicting an appropriate will and reasoning powers. If the thumb is set very low, it can imply weakness of self-control or a lack of interest regarding intellectual matters. The low set thumb belongs to the extroverts, adventurers and manual workers. We're going to talk about the angle of the thumb now. So the angle of the thumb measures from the space between the inside of the thumb and the edge of the palm, on how wide the thumb is being held. When the thumb is approximately between 45 and 70 degree angle to the palm, it's classed as average. A low set thumb usually has a wide angle, and a high set thumb will have a narrow one. The average thumb angle shows a healthy, responsible attitude with positive qualities of leadership. It shows a relaxed, open and self-confident character. So that's the other part of finding balance in the thumb. Not only having the sections of the thumb approximately equal length, but neither too close to the hand or too far away from the hand. Somewhere in between is nice. So the narrow angle thumb, where it's held close to the hand, when it's 30 degrees or less, rather than opening away from it, it suggests a more quiet, untrusting or guarded personality. When looking at compatibility in relationships, someone with a narrow angle thumb would not appreciate the recklessness of the very broad angle thumb. They're rather timid and introverted, mostly intellectually inclined, often a specialist in their field though. They're naturally secretive, and with the thumb tucked into the palm, if the thumb is tucked into the palm, it is a sign of apathy or depression. The narrow angle thumb traits can be offset to a degree if the thumb is also flexible, like in this picture. Whilst there's a narrow angle, the thumb has flex in it. We'll talk about the flexible thumb shortly. Now, the wide angle thumb, which opens to a wide angle, is mostly found on the low set thumb, and it suggests a more open and giving nature. So an angle that's 90 degrees or greater. However, it does denote an overly adaptable and reckless nature when if it's more than 90 degrees. These people are usually confident, down to earth and adventurous. While they can be very enthusiastic about matters, they may also be so carefree that they become negligent or irresponsible. They have a little bit less mental staying power than someone with a narrow angle. These qualities can be challenged by having a rigid thumb, a clear headline and a broad, long lifeline, which we will talk about on other lessons. Now, the small thumb. A small or short thumb is classed as such if it fails to reach halfway up the base of the phalange of the Jupiter, so the first section of Jupiter. The little thumb clearly denotes weakness of character and a passive nature, a daydreamer rather than a doer. And you can see on this picture, not only is it short because it only reaches the very first line, it's also quite thin looking thumb. So the usual qualities of drive, determination and action that come with a regular length thumb will be deficient. But these people are gentle, they are timid and quite submissive, so they will be easy to get along with. They are influenced by their heart and easily influenced by others. They do prefer being told what to do or someone else doing it for them. They need a lot of guidance. Often they're used to being looked after by someone else. If the tip is pointed, it signifies a passive-aggressive person. If the short thumb is also thin, it shows a lack of authority or physical strength. So this kind of person is not likely to be the boss or leader of a team or company. If it happens to be thick, however, it suggests forcefulness, but with a lack of sensitivity. So where they are influenced by the heart, the thick thumb reduces that feeling and the sensitivity of the person. Now, a large thumb. An extended or large thumb is one which reaches past the middle of the lower section. So when the hand is closed, the thumb will reach past the area here shown on the red dot. It will probably reach all the way up to the first line. So that depicts strength of character. This is a natural ruler and leader. This actual photo is the hand of a boss, by the way. You can see the size of that thumb, that he has a lot of leadership and control. They have good staying power. They are influenced by the mind, not by the heart. So as with a regular length thumb, people with a long or large thumb are self-motivated. They have a sensible and realistic approach to most matters. If the thumb appears to be exceedingly long or thick, like if it really stands out as a really big thumb, they will be physically strong. They will tend to be domineering and aggressive. Now, rigid thumb. Rigid thumb can be on a short or a long thumb, but a rigid or straight thumb is when the top joint does not bend away from the hand at all. It reveals someone with a persistent nature with fixed attitudes. They are stubborn but determined, and they're not likely to fuss or worry too much, although they do lack some spontaneity. The positive aspect of the stiff thumb is that it mainly belongs to someone with very stable reasoning, and so these people prefer to negotiate situations through actual evidence. They do like to be in control, but may try to dominate someone with a flexible thumb. They have a skill for concentration, and they're usually reliable and responsible. They have strong opinions, and they are straight to the point. If the rigid thumb is with very coarse skin, they are generally unsympathetic. And here's the opposite of the rigid thumb, is the flexible thumb. So when the whole thumb is naturally supple or curved from the side view, it shows flexible attitude, someone who's open to new ideas and readily adapts to their circumstances. They happily go with the flow. They are generous, friendly, and forthcoming. They prefer to avoid aggressive situations. They're not likely to dictate to others, but instead do the job themselves. If they do need you, or if they are a boss, they would rather ask you politely and maybe even show you how to do the job. A very bent-looking thumb indicates an overly generous nature. They will be an easy target for a salesman, especially if the spaces between the fingers are wide. In relationships, someone with a flexible thumb might feel bullied by someone with a rigid thumb. The thumb tips now. The round tip is the most common shape for the tip of the thumb. It characterizes an open mind, adaptable, warm-hearted, and creative personality. They are quick thinkers, but sometimes also quick-tempered. They will often rely on other instincts when making decisions. Now, bulbous tip is when it is obviously puffy looking at the tip. So it has a noticeably thick top phalange. Usually the padding is very firm. This kind of tip depicts plenty of vitality, but they have a temper. Unless it's soft and flabby, that is. They're generally passionate and enthusiastic. They are capable of withholding some of this vigour and sometimes all of a sudden do something impulsive, especially if the tip is much shorter than the second phalange. They are a perfectionist, determined and rather assertive. If with thick fingers, it shows an excessively, with an excessively large amount of Venus, they will be unrefined, obstinate and obsessive. In a relationship, a bulbous tip won't be very well matched with a soft, flat one, as they will be inclined to drain their valuable energy. So the energy of the bulbous thumb tip will overwhelm someone with a very flat tip. So a short and bulbous tip. I didn't have a photo, so I had to draw one. It's a little bit funny, but if the tip is much shorter than the rest of the thumb, and then it's bulbous as well, it's classically called the murderous thumb due to its crude appearance, looking more like a big toe. While this representation is just a bit exaggerated, it does, however, denote a build-up of energy in an otherwise small section of the thumb. So it suggests instinctive and impulsive behaviour. Because the willpower is short, they may not be thinking before they act. So the short top phalange tells of a lack of willpower. It may be possible to consider, though, that this shape formed naturally during a period when the person required willpower, and once the passion became a part of their life, they became more determined, and the determination to use their willpower made the tip gradually become bulbous. So the bulbous is because they are using that willpower. So the energy applied to achieve their desired effect develops an overdeveloped tip. So the pointed thumb tip now. It's classed as pointed when the top phalange tapers and is clearly narrower than the bottom section. If it's only slightly pointed, they are naturally inspired, intuitive and creative. The more pointed the thumb is, the more touchy they are, easily offended or taking things the wrong way. They can be dreamy and idealistic, but also impulsive and somehow adept at manipulating others. So, meaning passive-aggressive. With a pointed thumb tip that's also bulbous, it depicts a very assertive disposition. Now the spatula tip, looking at it from the front view, so not to be confused with the bulbous tip, it represents someone with a sense of adventure, energy and exceptional manual dexterity, like a basketball player. These people are innovative, self-confident, down-to-earth and sporty. Often they're a craftsman who is good with their hands, so they can be creative and original, especially if the thumb is at least normal length or longer. If the spatula tip is also bulbous, it shows obsessive and perfectionist. The owner of spatula tips will not often be compatible with someone who has a flat or pointed tips due to the energy levels being completely opposite of each other. So we'll talk about the flat tip now, which is completely opposite of the bulbous. So looking at it sideways, the flat tip appears thinner than the rest of the thumb. That belongs to someone who's quite nervous. It can also denote a shortage of energy or currently a reduced level of fitness, especially if it's also soggy. So it doesn't mean that this person always has a flat tip. It may be that they have been very tired lately. They've had, a very difficult year or whatever, and the energy has depleted from the thumb, so it's become flat. So you could test that degree of vitality by pressing the tip to see if it bounces back quickly. If it doesn't bounce quickly and it's slow to come back, it shows that the energy levels are low. It could also be that they haven't been drinking enough water, and it could be that they are unfit. These people do, however, have a keen psychological insight, and they have an ability to motivate others, sometimes manipulate others. They are social, often flirtatious. They are refined and gentle, but highly strung. Square tip. This is my favourite thumb. The square shape is recognised by a slight angle on the side of the tip or a flattish area on the top. It denotes practicality, honesty, sensibility, and reliability. This type of people are level-headed, law-abiding, and organised. They are fairly serious about their work and can lack creativity or flexibility. They might find it difficult to adapt to changes unless the tip is also supple. So they like to stick to something. Once they know something, they like to stick to it, and they stay very organised doing it. Conic is when it's slightly pointed at the very tip. So with the conic shape, the whole tip is not narrow and pointed. People with this type are idealistic, sensitive, often artistic and receptive, but somewhat impulsive. They like to make a good impression to the public, but they're not too concerned about it in their private life. And what I mean by that is they probably have a very messy house, but they'll keep their car and their clothes neat. If it's wide at the joint, it shows that they can be obstinate and argumentative. If the thumb has a waist, so a narrower bottom section, this shape belongs to someone who likes to experience things from a spiritual, analytical viewpoint, and they prefer to look much deeper beneath what's on the surface of facts. Usually the wasted thumb marks a good-natured character as it reveals tact and diplomacy. These people know how to deal with others, but because the area of logic is leaner than the area of will, their physical health may not be able to keep up with their ideals. It may be that their judgment doesn't play a significant role in their decisions. If it's excessively wasted, it can show someone who's quite cunning. You may not ever fully be able to trust them. A straight thumb. Here's another favourite. Looking at it from the nail side, both the phalanges are approximately the same thickness and length. It's the ideal balanced thumb. It shows someone logical, direct, trustworthy, and modest. They have a rational and balanced nature, and if the lower phalange is thicker than the tip, it can show that they're a little bit crude, blunt, or tactless, or even insensitive. There we go. Wearing a ring on the thumb. When someone wears a ring on their thumb, it shows that they're trying to boost the qualities of the thumb, such as willpower, confidence, or leadership. Rarely see people who have a large thumb wearing a ring on it. They will often have a small or thin thumb, people who wear rings. If the thumb is not small or weak, the ring is depicting a very domineering type, or one who is trying to succeed in their life. Summary now. So the large thumb shows strength and force, realism and determination. They are guided by the head, but they may lack sentimentality. So the area of will is balanced with the area of logic. In thickness and length, it shows a good use of willpower and putting thoughts into action. If the area of logic shows the good amount of reasoning, common sense, intelligence, organisation skills and thoughtfulness. So if that is balanced with the will. The small thumb then, especially if it's also thin, with its weakness has insufficient force, and the heart guides them. Their life is ruled by sentiment. Whenever I see a small, thin thumb, I recommend that they find the help of a trustworthy mentor. That is the end of lesson 8. I hope you have enjoyed learning about the thumb, and I look forward to lesson 9 where we talk about the sections of the fingers.